As I said, being one of the most innovative people in terms of extended techniques on the electric guitar, we thought it was really worthwhile to invite him also to demonstrate some of the sounds that he invented. And you told me that you once did a sort of a workshop at your daughter's school.
It's the only time I ever did a workshop.
Yes.
My son's middle school. And it was fun. It seems to me that the guitar is something which is capable of an almost infinite variety of possibilities, timbrally. But as he also very ably just demonstrated, there is actually no such thing as an electric guitar. This is not really an instrument. I can say this is an electric guitar, but it doesn't become an electric guitar until I plug it in. So, and also send it through whatever I want to send it to. So it's only this plus that, which is an electric guitar. And therefore, you can imagine, especially in the context of this festival, how difficult it would be for a composer to deal with how to compose for an electric guitar, because if you show a composer a violin and say, here's a violin, you know pretty much, in spite of all the variations of subtle variations in manufacture and wood and everything else, you all know what a violin sounds like. Although this actually has the biggest dynamic range of any instrument. It's a huge dynamic range. And my early experiments, after I'd been in rock bands and done stuff of the normal type, was to try to defeat the characteristics of the instrument as they presented themselves to me. So most of the time, in a conventional setting, you strike the string and it produces a sound. So you have already a transient peak followed by a fade out. So my early experiments were to do with how do I get a note to last a long time. Obviously the first thing, as a violinist, the bow was an obvious solution. So you can bow the strings. If you bow them near the bridge, you get the harmonics, just like sul ponticello on a violin. The meat. So you have several different timbres. There are limits to what you can do with the bow, because you can't really play very many notes. The open strings are great, but the notes are hard to control because the metal strings are too thin. So at best it's going to sound something like medieval music, which is not without its charms. But you can't do that much with it. But as a continuous sound device, it's kind of interesting. I experimented with other things. How else can we make a note sustain? We can brush it. That has the advantage of being a lot more even in sound, so you don't hear the bow scraping the strings. So it's more kind of luminous. Then there's string, which is of course very handy for other things. Another kind of sustained sound, and of course if you apply electronics to the sounds, you have a whole range of extra timbres to go with it. So with distortion that becomes I've seen a lot of the use of this device while I've been here. This is an e-bow. This was invented in the mid-70s. I've had one since 1979. It's recently been discovered by composers, so they can now get the guitar to sound. It's an electromagnetic field generator. So what it's doing is simultaneously attracting and repelling the string, which is made of metal, and also activated by the pickups, which are also magnetic. So the closer to the pickups, the louder it gets. Tends to exaggerate the rather nasty, whiny 1 kilohertz harmonic, so the best thing to do is roll out all the treble and reduce the volume when you use it, and then you can actually make it sound quite pretty. if I wanted to raise the pitch of the guitar by 2 octaves, which is one of the things you can do with this device, then you can have a kind of a penny whistle sound.
Can you?
Of course, you can do 2 octaves lower, but that's not quite so.
Is it possible to control more than one string with the EBow?
Most of the time, what we've been hearing here has been used as a drone. But actually, it's very lively, so you can actually do arpeggios, for example. So. No wonder it sounds. That kind of thing. Yeah. And obviously with the treble roll back in, you can make it sound quite nasty.